This is Newsnight, where we go above and beyond the headlines. I'm Mai Rodriguez, sitting in for Pia Ontiveros. Tonight on the program, Bongbong Marcos claiming victory in the 2022 presidential race as the partial and unofficial counts show he is the apparent winner. Welcome news for consumers. Power distributor Meralco says you can expect lower electricity bills this month. And will the UP Fighting Maroons make history and win their first championship after more than 3 decades? Or will the Ateneo Blue Eagles keep its campaign for a 4-peat overall win? New numbers from the Comelec Transparency server. No major changes from the ranking. Ferdinand Marcos Jr. is still poised to win the presidency. As of 4:32 p.m., Marcos has 31,088,020 votes. Leni Robredo with 14,814,221. That's more than double the number of votes, or Bongbong Marcos's votes is more than double of Vice President Leni Robredo. Manny Pacquiao in third place with 3,629,491 votes, followed by Isko Moreno and Ping Lacson. On to the vice presidential race. Sara Duterte keeps her wide lead over Kiko Pangilinan. Duterte has 31,543,514 votes. Kiko Pangilinan with 9,227,196, followed by Tito Soto, Doc Willie Ong, and Lito Atienza at number 5. The Comelec's accredited citizens arm, Parish Pastoral Council for Responsible Voting, or PPCRV, is leading a parallel and unofficial vote count. Let's get updates from Paige Javier. She joins us from the PPCRV Command Center in UST. Paige, how are things over there?
The PPCRV aims to begin tomorrow the matching of the physical election returns with the electronically transmitted ones. They originally intended this to be started today, but they wanted to wait a bit longer so that more election returns can come in. As of 2:35 p.m., the PPCRV has received nearly 19,000 election returns, mostly coming from the Luzon and the National Capital Region or Metro Manila.
Nag-iintay pa tayo ng isang araw para po mas dumami ang ating ERs, hindi lang po sa NCR, pero sa mas madaming lugar galing sa Luzon. Susunod din po, bukas siguro magdadatingan ang iba sa Visayas. Perhaps starting tomorrow, we're going to release yung percentage match, no? Like we did in 2019.
The PPCRV reported a 99.995% match rate in the 2019 elections. Villanueva says they cannot promise to receive all of the nearly 106,000 returns by this week, since other precincts are located in far-flung areas. But she says they will continue encoding and accepting these returns even after May 20th. Villanueva reiterates there are no discrepancies noted so far and that they're looking into the speculations we're seeing on social media. Mai?
Paige, you mentioned the reports and posts spreading on social media. What does the PPCRV have to say about these issues?
Well, they addressed a lot of them in the press conference earlier this afternoon, and the poll watchdog appeals to the public to be more cautious in spreading these posts, especially if they're unverified.
Nakakalungkot na itong election cycle na to, padami po ang sapalaran ng misinformation on all sides. And I really want to caution the public. Panahon po na maghinahon at intayin ang mga trabaho ng Comelec, ng mga iba-ibang mga citizens arms.
The PPCRB also denied the alleged tear gas incident, which some people say happened here yesterday. And they also addressed the shortage of volunteers. In fact, they said that they are already filled with volunteers up to May 15. However, for those who still want to volunteer beyond that date, which is May 16 to May 20, they said that slots are open and that they're accepting sign-ups for those who want to help out. We also saw a lot of food donations coming in earlier this afternoon when we arrived here at the UST PPCRB Command Center. They're grateful for all of these donations, but they also urge the people to donate only to their official channels to avoid those who want to put the PPCRB's name in a bad light. Mai?
Thank you, Paige. Javier there reporting. With his huge lead over other contenders in the partial and unofficial COMELEC tally, presidential candidate Bongbong Marcos now claims victory in the race to Malacanang. Our correspondent Rex Ramito is joining us from his campaign headquarters in Mandaluyong. Rex, what's next for Bongbong Marcos after his declaration of victory?
His spokesperson, Attorney Vic Rodriguez, says they're finalizing the members of the transition team and his cabinet. Rodriguez also says Marcos has names in mind but declined to reveal them for now. They will meet today and tomorrow to talk about it. He will also have another address to the nation soon. Also, the Marcos camp has officially declared a victory in the presidential race. Marcos's chief of staff cited the 98% of votes counted based on partial and unofficial counts, and that his lead of 16 million votes is already unassailable. Rodriguez also says Marcos will be the president for all Filipinos, even those who did not vote for him. The lawyer also says Bongbong is looking forward to work not only locally but with international partners as well.
The Filipino people have spoken decisively. Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. will be the 17th President of the Philippines. This is a victory for all Filipinos and for democracy. He says, "Judge me not by my ancestors, but by my actions."
Rodriguez, however, clarified Marcos has not declared victory himself yet. He says it's the nature of his boss not to assume anything until he's there. Marcos, meanwhile, also visited the tomb of his father, Ferdinand Marcos Sr. at the Libingan ng mga Bayani. In a photo release, his camp says Bongbong is grateful to his father who have been his inspiration in life. His camp adds, his father also taught him the value and meaning of true leadership. The Duterte administration and the Supreme Court allowed the burial of his father in 2016. Critics and surviving martial law victims, meanwhile, are against the ruling. Attorney Rodriguez also said BBM will soon face members of the media. He has yet to say where and when that press conference of Marcos will be. Marcos's chief of staff was also asked if vloggers will be accredited by their administration. He says they will consider that possibility. Marcos showed up here a while ago to greet his supporters before he went inside his campaign headquarters. Back to you, Mai.
Rex, many are wondering who will compose this economic team, who will get us out of this slump. What are the names that have been floated and who is standing out?
Well, Rodriguez declined to name any of his possible cabinet members. He said that they haven't thought about things beyond the May 9 elections, but they're saying, or Marcos rather, said in his past interviews that they will get the most competent cabinet members as possible and those whom he had working experience with. Mai.
Thank you, Rex Ramito there reporting. Senator Manny Pacquiao is the latest among presidential candidates who have accepted defeat. In a 2-minute video message, the senator said it's time to give unity a chance to move the country forward.
The people have spoken. Tapos na ang halalan, kaya bigyan naman natin ng pagkakataon ang pagkakaisa para sa kapayapaan at kaunlaran ng ating bansa. Bilang isang boxer at atleta, marunong akong tumanggap ng pagkatalo. Sana lang kahit talo ako sa laban na ito, panalo pa rin ang mga kapwa ko Pilipino. Sa ating susunod na Pangulong Bongbong Marcos, Ako ay nananalangin para sa tagumpay ng iyong administrasyon na maraming mga mahihirap ang maiangat ang buhay at matulungan.
Manila Mayor Isko Moreno, Senator Ping Lacson, Labor Leader Leody de Guzman, and Muslim businessman Faisal Mangondato earlier conceded defeat. Unlike Pacquiao and other candidates, Leni Robredo has yet to concede defeat. Robredo, Marcos's arch-rival, is second in the partial unofficial presidential count. The vice president has appealed to her supporters to accept whatever the results may be. But for now, she is asking them not to lose hope, as this is only the beginning of the, quote, fight for good governance. Robredo will hold a pasasalamat for all supporters with running mate Kiko Pangilinan at Daliwasang Aurora, Quezon City Circle on Friday. Straight ahead, more controversies hounding the 2022 polls, with the COMELEC investigating at least 2 election-related incidents. While consumers will see lower power rates, with Meralco set to reduce charges this month. This is Newsnight on CNN Philippines.
Making life sweet is easy dahil 35 pesos SRP lang ang San Miguel flavored beer. Swak sa budget, panalo sa sweetness.
Uy, sweet!
Make life sweet with San Miguel flavored beer.
LG OLED Evo, self-lit pixels, delivers deep black and true-to-life colors. Light up your world with the best TV technology in this era. LG OLED Evo.
Kids may now be allowed outside, but the pandemic is not over. Always observe social distancing and bring safety essentials. Keep them safe inside and outside the house. Help strengthen their immunity with Saline Plus.
Welcome back. Let's check on the partial and unofficial vote count again. As of 4:32 p.m., Bongbong Marcos has kept his wide lead with 31,088,000 votes. Leni Robredo, 14,814,221 votes. Manny Pacquiao with 3,629,491, followed by Isko Moreno and Ping Lacson. Moving on to the vice presidential race, Sara Duterte keeping her lead, also 31,543,514. Kiko Pangilinan at number 2 with 9,227,196 votes, followed by Tito Soto, Doc Willie Ong, and Lito Atienza. Let's check who's leading in the Senate. Actor Robin Padilla has kept his number 1 spot with over 26 million votes, followed by Loren Legarda with over 23 million votes, or close to 24 million. Rafi Tulfo at number 3 with over 23 million votes. Win Gatchalian at number 4 with over 20 million votes. Cheese Escudero number 5 with over 20 million votes. Mark Villar at number 6 with 19,198,425 votes, followed by Alan Peter Cayetano. Number 8 is Mig Zubiri. Tesdaman Joel Villanueva at number 9, and JV Ejercito at number 10 with over 15 million votes. Lisa Ontiveros at number 11 with 15,226,186. Jinggoy Estrada at number 12 with 14,961,241, and Jojo Binay at number 13 with over 13 million votes, followed by Herbert Bautista at number 14 with 12,935,751 votes. All eyes are on poll watcher PPCRV as cheating allegations surface in the presidential race, where Marcos and Robredo are in the top two. Chief anchor and correspondent Pia Ontiveros spoke to PPCRV chairperson Myla Villanueva and political consultant Edwin Lacerda on politics as usual last night. Let's listen to their insights.
I will shift towards the PPCRV count, and I'm sure you feel that, right?
Yes, we feel a lot of things, Pia. Of course, there's a lot of emotion, there's a lot of disinformation. So we're taking steps as the day goes on, and there are big interests in certain things. First of all, we, as usual, and is common, we ask the COMELEC for logs around the transmission and the other details about VCMs and SD cards. There's also a lot of questions around the speed of transmission or certain patterns that I was asked in the earlier news cycle. And I wanted to say that we asked experts from the math department of Ateneo and UST. They have not found any irregularity in the transmission patterns that people have seemed to talk about in social media this morning.
Patterns, variants, because exactly like you said, nasa social media, umiikot yung mga graphics na yon. So you're parang telling people na kalma lang, no? We haven't found all these math experts, and that's important. We have these subject matter experts who are on it and have not found anything.
As of the moment, yes. And let's also say that they are PPCRV volunteers, but they're also from universities that I have invited.
You were here when all the numbers were starting to come in. And it's been 24 hours. There's still some, medyo mataas ang emotions, no, ng mga Lenny supporters, for example. No? How would you address them now? Although you are not naman, hindi ka naman bahagi ng Lenny campaign ngayon.
I think there's this thing going around that there's a variance, there's a problem with the COMELEC, with the transparency server count, or by and large, pareho lang naman ang results figures ng tatlong servers na yun. So they're questioning that. So I think may believe sila na nadaya si Lenny, and therefore we should make sure that the count is the real count is tabulated.
But that's not what COMELEC is doing now?
That's COMELEC's count COMELEC already. But so that's why.
And there is PPCRV's count.
There's also PPCRV there, so PPCRV we know it's non-partisan. So, and it's media gets exposed, gets all the figures. So in fact, you're reporting ahead of the official count, which is basically the same numbers that they're going to report in. So fundamentally, I don't know what we're looking for actually. Except maybe perhaps for the number of VC machines that weren't working. The question at the end of the day will be, assuming that they're all correct, would those uncounted VCs that were not transmitted be sufficient enough to overturn the votes?
The Senate receives the first batch of certificates of canvass and election returns for the presidential and vice presidential elections. Ballot boxes from the city of Malabon arrived first last night, while those from Cambodia and Vietnam came in this morning. The Senate is expected to receive the bulk of ballot boxes on May 22nd. Senate President Tito Soto says Congress, sitting as the National Board of Canvassers, may begin canvassing on May 24th. As partial and official results of the senatorial race trickle in, the Commission on Elections is looking into some election-related incidents in Mindanao. For more on this, Paolo Barcelona is joining us live from the National Board of Canvassers venue in Pasay City. Paolo, let's begin with these election-related incidents. Tell us what happened.
Well, my two election incidents in Mindanao are now being thoroughly looked into by the poll body. The first is the ballot tearing incident in Cotabato City, caught on video and posted on social media. COMELEC acting spokesperson Rex Laudianco says they are investigating whether or not the men in uniform seen in the video were among those deputized by the COMELEC as members of the electoral board after teachers initially assigned to 175 clustered precincts there backed out due to security reasons.
These reports are yet to be vetted. Parang ang nangyari po yata that they're tearing the unused ballots, but perhaps parang spoiled ballot po yata kasi parang yung first part lang po yung may shade, yung the succeeding parts po hindi na nating nakita.
The poll body is also probing another election-related incident in Tuburan, Lanao del Sur. Meanwhile, actor Robin Padilla leads the partial and official senatorial tally of the COMELEC. As of May 11, he is leading at 612,684 votes, followed by Rafi Tulfo, Loren Legarda, Mark Villar, Win Gatchalian, Cheese Escudero, Alan Cayetano, Joel Villanueva, Jinggoy Estrada, JV Ejercito, Mig Zubiri, and Jojo Binay. Harry Roque, Gibocho Doro, and Teddy Bagilat round up the 13th, 14th, and 15th spots respectively. Now, these votes that I mentioned might cover 7 areas in the Cordillera region, namely Baguio City, Abra, Ifugao, Benguet, Apayao, Kalinga, Mountain Province, as well as Malabon City. This official tally covers over 1.1 million votes cast for Senate seats. In the meantime, the COMELEC unbanked, sitting as the National Board of Canvassers, has suspended its session until 7 o'clock this evening. 77 of 83 expected provincial certificates of canvass are in as of 6 p.m. Mike.
Paulo, do we have a list so far of the areas where the proclamation threshold has been lowered, especially in local races? And for the benefit of our viewers, what does this mean?
Well, the poll body explains that they allowed the request of the local board of canvassers to lower the threshold in proclaiming winners in some local races. Now, the COMELEC says untransmitted results will no longer affect, or this depends rather on the situation on the ground. If the untransmitted results no longer affect the results of the polls as was done in 2016 and 2019, then such a request may be filed. Now, among those areas, let me just mention quickly, Mandaluyong City, wherein the race for mayor, vice mayor, congressman, and councilors, the threshold there was lowered. Muntinlupa, the race for mayor, vice mayor, and congressman. Taguig, the congressional race for the 1st District, mayor, vice mayor, and councilors, as well as the mayoralty race in Montalban, Rizal, and the vice mayoralty race in Naik, Cavite. Now, it's important to note that the decision to lower the threshold to proclaim depends on the position. So, for example, one moves to declare to lower the threshold, let's say for mayor, it's only for the mayoral position, and it will not affect the threshold of other positions, Mike.
Paulo, when do we expect the proclamation of winning senators and party list groups? Is it likely to happen within this week?
Well, our COMELEC Commissioner George Garcia says they're optimistic that they will be able to proclaim the 12 winning senators and the party lists by Sunday. Now, that's because, especially for the party list race, it entails computation of actual votes, and which will determine which among the party lists will get the 63 seats up for grabs. As for the senators, they're hoping, that by Sunday they're able to proclaim all 12 senators to avoid a situation wherein there's what they call a partial proclamation, meaning, for example, the first 5 or the first 6 followed by the other 6. So they're optimistic that with the pace of the current counting and the transmissions, they're able to make these proclamations by Sunday. Mike.
Paulo, we are getting word that the COMELEC has declared a failure of elections in some areas. Can you tell us more about this?
Well, yes, just moments before we went on the air, the COMELEC said that the towns of Tubaran, Butig, and Binidayan in Lanao del Sur declared a failure of elections. So these declarations were made by the COMELEC, and according to the resolution that was released to us minutes ago, they are saying now that the special elections in Barangay Ragayan in Butig Barangay Pindolonan in Binidayan and the involved barangays of Tubaran will be held on May 15 or on a date that the COMELEC unbank seems proper. This is because, this is due to different incidents. The one in Butig says the AFP failed to retrieve stolen official ballots while one policeman was stabbed while protecting the vote counting machines. The one in Binidayan says violence resulting to the damage of BCMs and official ballots. Meanwhile, in Tubaran, the reason for the failure of elections was violence, threats, and intimidation. Mai.
Thank you for that update. Paolo Barcelon reporting live from the National Board of Canvassers site in Pasay City. On to the gubernatorial elections. Who are the incumbent governors getting another term and who lost their seats? As Tristan Nodalo tells us, most of the winners in vote-rich provinces supported Bongbong Marcos and Sara Duterte.
Familiar names and incumbent officials secured another term in the just concluded national elections. In vote-rich province of Cebu, home to over 3 million voters, Governor Gwen Garcia wins the seat against former Tourism Secretary Ace Durano. Garcia won over 1 million votes, the highest recorded so far for a gubernatorial candidate. During her proclamation, Garcia says that apart from winning, she also felt relieved to have delivered the votes for the tandem of Bongbong Marcos and Sara Duterte.
It's a fulfillment of a commitment. I committed that I would do my very best to deliver Cebu to the unity because I believed in their message of unity.
Cavite Governor John Vic Remulla was also re-elected with over 1.3 million votes. Laguna Governor Ramil Hernandez was also proclaimed after winning his last term for the province. Bulacan Governor Daniel Fernando also emerged victorious together with his running mate Alex Castro. In Negros Occidental, Bong Lacson won the province's top post with over 900,000 votes. The Mandanas-Levista tandem also triumphed in the province of Batangas. Toto Defensor meantime leads in the province of Iloilo with over 800,000 votes. The Inares family remains in power in Rizal province with Nina Inares getting re-elected as governor. And in Pampanga, Delta Pineda and Lilia Pineda won the governor and vice governor posts respectively. Rounding up the top 10 vote-rich provinces, Pangasinan elects a new governor with Congressman Ramon Guico defeating incumbent Amado Espino III. This is not the first time Guico defeated a member of the Espino clan in the province.
Imagine kung ilan yung nagtiwala sa iyo na nakita ka lang at nag-hope na sana may bagong administration ang Pangasinan. So hindi po pandaraya ito, gaya ng sinasabi nila. We have really nakuha po natin, na-capture natin ang tiwala ng Pangasinan.
In vote-rich Davao City, re-electionists Paulo and Baste Duterte, sons of President Rodrigo Duterte, were proclaimed first district representative and city mayor respectively. It is telling the majority of the winning governors in these vote-rich provinces back the tandem of Marcos Duterte. Tristan Nodalo, CNN Philippines.
Straight ahead on Newsnight, the Fighting Maroons and the Blue Eagles are facing off for the highly awaited Game 2 of UAAP men's basketball. Keep it here on CNN Philippines.
Exodus 18:21. But you choose from the people capable men, God-fearing men, men of truth, those who hate bribes, and put them over the people as rulers of thousands, rulers of hundreds, rulers of 50s, and rulers of 10s. Ang mabuting balita ay hatid sa inyo ng MX3. For us food experts,
pure love deserves only pure sarap
with Pure Foods corned beef. Our gold standard beefy taste
and goodness. That's why for us,
it will always be Pure Sarap, Pure Foods.
Consumers of power distributor Meralco will expect lower charges this month. Meralco is cutting power rates by 12 centavos per kilowatt hour this month. Households consuming around 200 kilowatt hours per month will be charged lower by 24 pesos. Meralco says the reduction is a result of the Energy Regulatory Commission's order to refund 7.8 billion pesos in excess collections. In sports, Team Philippines scores its first gold medal in the 31st Southeast Asian Games in Vietnam. Marie Francine Padios topped the women's semi-tunggal single category in Pencaksilat today. Malacanang congratulates Padios for, quote, bringing glory to the country. And moving on to the UAAP, UP and Ateneo face off again for the highly awaited Game 2 of the men's basketball finals at the Mall of Asia Arena. Currently, the Blue Eagles have an early lead this first quarter, 17-16. UP won the first game, so if they take this one, the school earns its first championship in 36 years. But an Ateneo win means Game 3 pushes through on Friday, giving the Blue Eagles a chance to claim a four-peat title in the league. But both teams have already scored triumphs this season through individual awards. Ateneo big man Angelo Kwame is named Most Valuable Player of Season 84. Kwame tallied 69.21 statistical points. Meanwhile, UP's Carl Tamayo earns Rookie of the Year. Tamayo is the first fighting Maroon to win this since Juan Gomez de Liriano in 2017. And that's it for tonight. Join me again on News.ph at 7 p.m. I'm Mike Rodriguez, sitting in for Pia on Tiveros on Newsnight, where we go above and beyond the headlines.
Awareness is growing rapidly. Unfortunately, many still hold beliefs about autism that are untrue. This lack of understanding can make it difficult for people to receive the proper support they need. Autism spectrum disorder is a developmental disability that can cause challenges in communication, social skills, behavior, and learning. The term spectrum refers to a wide range of symptoms and severity. While there is no cure for this condition, intensive and early treatment can make a huge difference in people's lives. I'm Dr. Frederick Gomez, and we bring you the knowledge and care you need and deserve. You're watching Mental Health Talk only on CNN Philippines. Misconceptions about autism can make people living with this condition feel isolated and lonely. Our guest today will help us understand this condition as well as dispel some of the misconceptions or misinformation surrounding it. With us is Dr. Catherine Baltazar Braganza, who is a neurodevelopmental pediatrician from USC Hospital and the Philippine Children's Medical Center. Also joining us is Mrs. Mona Magno-Veluz. She is the National President of Autism Society Philippines. Now, let's go through some of the more common misconceptions about autism. I'll start off with that all people with autism have the same skills as well as difficulties or challenges. I'll start with Ms. Mona. What is the truth with that, Ms. Mona?
The truth is, autism, like we said, is a spectrum. In our experience, it is not even just a flat, straight line. It is a sphere. So somebody who may be very, very intelligent may have debilitating anxiety. Somebody who may not be verbal can be such a talented artist. So in fact, even the terms low functioning, high functioning is something that is deceiving because they are so different and so valid. The autism of my son is very different from how the autism manifests in, for example, the guidance of Dr. Kat.
But I'd like to go to another misconception. And that is that children with autism are unruly, noisy, very aggressive, very awkward in social situations, maingay. Now, there are those with autism who may shout or hit when distressed, but this isn't the case for all. It's rare for someone with autism to intentionally cause harm to someone else or another person. Ms. Mona, why are some perceived to be as aggressive?
When somebody on the autism spectrum cannot express themselves, or they may have other conditions, like sometimes they are unable to sleep at night, or they have gut issues, masakit ang tiyan nila, syempre pag-gising nila, they're going to be agitated. So what we see as aggressive behaviors or sometimes unruly behaviors, especially in the classroom, is not just that. That is a manifestation of other sensory or medical issues that that person on the autism spectrum may have.
Another misconception is that people with autism aren't capable of forming meaningful relationships as well as friendships. They often have very strong bonds with important people in their lives, and they can fulfill relationships with family, friends, partners, and children. Dr. Catherine, this time, please tell us more about this. Yan ang misconception na kapag autistic ang isang tao, hindi siya makaka-form ng relationship.
Maybe the reason why people think of it as that is because they have difficulties with social emotional reciprocity. So they think if a person with autism would be approached, they would have a different way of communicating what they are thinking or their thoughts. That's why they think they couldn't form special relationships. But you are right, they do form special relationships with their loved ones. We feel that as their doctors, and also the teachers could attest to that.
But another common misconception is that people with autism have an intellectual disability. Now, some people with the condition do have this, but others have IQ within the typical range or even higher. Now, we shouldn't restrict their opportunities for education and social interactions by making assumptions about their intellectual abilities. Dr. Catherine, can you expound a little bit on this?
Recent studies would say that only 30% of children with autism would have intellectual disability. So that's a common misconception, maybe because sometimes they do not know how to respond well. So the people would think, oh, maybe they have intellectual disability because it's one of their core deficits. But no, a lot of people with autism would have high IQ. They would just have interest. They would master those interests and do good on it.
People with autism have difficulty expressing their feelings or express them differently, but they're capable of feeling the full spectrum of emotions. Ms. Mona, please explain on this concept and why this is so.
They are capable of those feelings, but they express it in a different way. So somebody who is very interested in you and wants to connect with you, for example, may start talking about their interest. They would be obsessed with a TV show, and that's all they would talk to you about. It's not about that show that they're expressing. They are expressing their interest in you, and that is their only way that they know how to connect. In terms of the feelings, they also may have difficulty in expressing it in facial expression. Sometimes they also have difficulty in understanding what the facial expression of the person in front of them is talking about. So this is something that we teach, believe it or not, in occupational therapy, in speech therapy. That is a skill that they have to acquire through intervention. But they are capable of so much emotion and so much passion.
Another common misconception or myth about autism is that it is a childhood condition that can be outgrown or cured even. Now, autism characteristics start early in life and continue through adulthood, which is why it can't be outgrown. Could you explain how they should look at this?
Autism is described as a lifelong condition. So the symptoms would change from time to time. So maybe that's why others would think that it could be outgrown. So a study done in 2020 said that around approximately 9% of those children earlier diagnosed with autism don't meet the criteria anymore by youth. So things that were found similar to those children who do not meet the criteria later on would have good cognitive skills by 2 years old and early intervention.
When we return, we'll discuss the symptoms and causes of ASD. We're your connection to healthcare. You're watching Med Talk Health Talk. ASD varies widely in symptoms and severity, so making a diagnosis may be challenging. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and you're watching Mental Health Talk. We're together in health. Diagnosing ASD can be challenging, even difficult, as there's no medical test to determine if they have it. Dr. Kath, with that being said, paano nadadiagnose, or how does one meet the diagnostic criteria for having autism spectrum disorder?
We base our diagnosis in DSM-5. So the core deficits are usually grouped into two. It could be social deficits in social communication and repetitive, restricted behavior, interests, or activities. The deficits in social communication would include social reciprocity, so nonverbal communicative behavior. So these are the abnormalities in eye contact or use of gestures, and maintaining and understanding relationships. Symptoms for the repetitive, restricted behavior, interests, or activities would include stereotype or repetitive motor movements. That's what others would always see, the hand flapping, repetitive jumping or clapping, insistence on sameness or inflexibility to the routines, and hyper or hyposensitivities to sensory input.
Many children don't receive a diagnosis until they're much older. And this delay might cause these children to not get the early help that they need, because the symptoms of ASD will normally appear during childhood, approximately around the toddler age, so around the 1 to 2 years old. What are some of the common signs shown by individuals with autism?
The most common that we see in clinics is language delay. So they don't get to talk on the age that we're expecting them to talk. And usually they come because of poor response to social overtures, meaning when you call them, they don't look at you. They don't turn their head. So red flags that were published include by 12 months, they does not respond to name calling. So that's also the most common symptom that we see. Second is does not point to objects to show interest. So they don't engage in joint attentions. They don't tell you if they are happy or they like something. And then by 18 months, they do not pretend play.
What is your advice for parents? When should they see a doctor?
What we suggest to parents who come to us is always trust your gut. If your child, as you see them, as you observe them, is already exhibiting certain things that were not, for something that you did not see in your older child, then you go to a doctor. Also, sometimes when they have cousins, you can compare. You go to a doctor. Also, if you have autism in your family, sometimes your family members can also give you guidance and, okay, that might be a red flag, let's go and check. So our advice is, when in doubt, go to your doctor.
We've been talking about children most of this time, but adults can also have ASD. And this doesn't mean that they develop the condition in adulthood. Most likely, they were unaware that they had this condition or weren't diagnosed when they were children. Ms. Mona, what are the symptoms of ASD in adults?
The reason why people get to a certain age and not be diagnosed, they have a term for it. They call it masking. If your parent tells you you're not supposed to feel that, you're not supposed to do that, then the person tries to adapt. And this happens a lot in girls. They say that girls mask better than boys. We do see a lot of adults on the autism spectrum who have not been diagnosed earlier. In my program called ASP Autism Works, we try to find employment for those who are on the spectrum. And the late diagnosis applicants that we get usually go to their psychologist or their psychiatrist for other concerns. For example, they have difficulty in holding a job or difficulty in expressing themselves to their family or to friends. So these are other issues that bring them to the professionals, and with the professional, they get the diagnosis.
But another common misconception that I'd like to point out, which I think is very important, especially in the Philippines, because maraming naniwala na autism is caused by vaccines. But do we already have an idea on what causes autism?
There is certain predisposition in developing autism. However, we don't know yet what the specific cause is. So regarding the vaccines, I think the reason why people initially believed it was because of vaccines, because the symptoms come out usually at 18 to 24 months when we give the MMR vaccine. So maybe that's why they thought it was caused by the vaccine. So predisposing factors include genetics. So based on twin studies, families who would have one person with autism would have predisposition of having another child with autism. Other predisposing conditions include preterm delivery, high-risk pregnancies. So those are the more common ones that they think of as cause of autism.
With that wide range of people falling into the diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder, how specialized can that treatment be?
So the main focus of the interventions would be to minimize the core deficit, maximize adaptive functions, and minimize the coexisting conditions when they grow up. It should be individualized, so it depends on the needs of every child.
Ms. Mona, let's talk about some of the more common challenges that adults with ASD may have.
What I see as deficits would be inability or lack of tact when they speak. So they are sometimes misunderstood in the workplace. Another one would be their lack of desire to work in a team, and they would rather work alone. They excel in solitary activities. Another thing would be the stress that they receive when you give them deadlines or when they would have to socialize. Those are factors that for the rest of us that don't really matter, but for them it gives them a high level of anxiety.
What are the basics when it comes to those with ASD? A lot of people may think that they need to have their space around them, they cannot be touched. Are these sort of misconceptions true? Do these still hold true now, or should that vary per individual?
Whenever I have sensitivity trainings, and I do this for employers, for example, you have to talk to the individual because they are so unique. Then you have to ask them, how do you want to be called? Do you get offended when I call you autistic? Is it okay for you to be touched? Do you want a little bit more space? Do you need a headset? It's the same for when they are in college and when they are at work. So all of these things matter. And the key thing here is you have to ask them, you have to talk to them, you have to be with them so that you can find out more about individuals on the autism spectrum.
Now, for many people with ASD, living with this condition is not easy. When we return, we'll talk about this and how it affects their families. Your health is our mission. This is MedTalk Health Talk. Persons living with ASD often need support from family as well as other people around them. Now, we're here to discuss how you can help people living with ASD. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and you're watching MedTalk Health Talk, where your healthcare always comes first. Dr. Catherine, what are some of the treatment management options with someone who is diagnosed with ASD?
So we usually refer our patients initially for occupational therapy to work on their behavior so that the therapist could help them sit for a long time, pay attention when taught. This would also address their play and their self-help skills. So once they're okay already, we start speech therapy sessions so that they could be taught how to communicate. Also, we always emphasize that family support is very important. People in the house or the family should always support the growth of the child.
Are there tests to see if they can cope up with normal school? Dapat ba special school? Could performance in a normal school be a red flag na baka may autism ang bata?
The choice of school is dependent on the child's needs or the child's abilities. So if we see that they could comprehend, that they could answer questions, or sometimes we do academic testings in the clinic and they could do well in a regular school, then we advise them to be in a regular school. But some kids, they would have difficulties with reading comprehension, then then we suggest putting them or enrolling them in a special school.
Now, Mona, can therapy help someone with ASD function better in society?
They are very helpful in keeping a child engaged in the community. Speech therapy, occupational therapy are very important because these are pre-learning skills. But once they are older, like for now, like there's a pandemic, imagine a child on the spectrum stuck at home who cannot go out, who cannot participate in a community activity. So for the Autism Society Philippines, it has become very important. It has become a priority that we continue our non-traditional intervention by providing opportunities for them to come together on Zoom or on any other platform. It is important for them to flex those skills that they should be flexing if it were face-to-face.
Now, before we go, Dr. Kath, do you have any message for our viewers?
There is always hope in children with autism. When you have a gut feeling that something's wrong, that your child is not developing well, consult at once.
And Mona, any words to say for our viewers when it comes to ASD? And please share with them how they can get in touch with Autism Society Philippines as well.
Autism is a lifelong developmental condition. Those on the autism spectrum can live productive, meaningful lives with early intervention, unconditional love, and societal acceptance. You can go to Autism Society Philippines Facebook page, Twitter, Instagram for details, and let's join hands, cooperate in inspiring acceptance, accommodation, and appreciation for those on the autism spectrum.
This discussion was very helpful, I'm sure, for a lot of our viewers. Thank you, developmental pediatrician Dr. Catherine Baltazar Braganza and ASP National President Ms. Mona Magno-Veluz. Research continues to advance our understanding of autism, but there is still a lot more to learn. In the meantime, it's best to seek help as soon as you suspect that there is something off or something wrong. The earlier children with this disorder can get help, the greater their chances of treatment success. Stay safe, everyone. We want to be your partner for a lifetime of good health. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and this has been MedTalk Health Talk on CNN Philippines.